Hi, good evening. I'd like to call the Public Safety and Equity Advisory Committee meeting to order. And I just want to say a reminder, can everybody please wait to be recognized and identify yourself for when they're writing the minutes up? Thank you. And may we have roll call?
Carol Allen.
Here.
Woodrow Terrell.
Here.
Shelby Stapleton.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Bob Harrington.
Here.
Mary Howell.
Here.
Shirley Winters.
Here.
Wade Bailey.
And can we stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, open for public comment on non-agenda items.
Come up. Yeah. I did put my name on the list as well. My name is Jason Gates, resident of Troutdale, 2876 Southwest Burlingame Avenue. And I wanted to come by and tell you about a potential hazard that I see within our city. I thought about doing up a diagram of what I was talking about, but instead I'll explain it to you, and then you may have already observed it yourself, and go drive there and you make your own assessment. So years ago, they started putting in the flashing yellow lights in traffic areas on surface streets where there's not a ton of traffic. Those flashing yellow lights are great. But what I have noticed since the inception of it is that this particular intersection, 257th and Stark. So the westbound lanes at that intersection come up a hill and make a slight turn and then turn into two lanes, from one lane to two lanes. And the view that they have coming up the hill, the line of sight isn't that great with regard to being able to see the intersection until you're within just a few yards of it. Well, I'd say 50 yards of the intersection. The eastbound lanes, the turn lane there has a flashing yellow light. And when you're in that light, it is inevitable that somebody's also in the left turn lane coming westbound. So if you can picture facing east in the left turn lane, preparing to go north on 257, with the vehicles that are also in the left turn lane that are in line with you, and the hill going down, those vehicles make it completely blind with regard to having any line of sight. And so if you look at it, come to the westbound lane and try to turn south, you have blocks. You can see all the way down to 223, or 242nd rather. And you can see everything that's coming. When you're eastbound, you have a line of sight that goes towards the gas station, towards the rear end of the gas station. That's it. So in addition to that, the other variables are that the crosswalk, the pedestrians still get to cross, even though you have a flashing yellow light. And you have that no line of sight. I shouldn't say no line of sight. I say inadequate line of sight with regard to the westbound traffic. Go check it out. And I thought about even filming it. It's like I gotta be on top of my game every single time I'm there. And it's not just that. This is a 5 lanes in all directions. It's a high crash intersection. Hear them and the fire trucks coming all the time. I have no idea whether that particular flashing yellow light has anything to do with any crashes. But I've always been a big proponent of at least identifying, if you identify a problem, trying to address it before somebody gets hurt or killed. And so I don't really expect anything to happen, but I just want to come by and say my piece. I've been looking at this and thinking I should talk to somebody about it. And I thought this would be the appropriate venue for it. And I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
This is Sherry, I do have a couple of questions. So you were talking about as you're facing east on start,
Yes.
waiting to make your left turn, flashing yellow, does it not go green some of the time? You can wait
It does.
straight
So,
green.
yeah, so when the red light turns green, after a few seconds, the flashing yellow comes on. And then sometimes, then when the light goes red again, it'll go green. Other times, that's the other thing that is a variable I think is too much for normal drivers to be able to process. Sometimes it goes to solid yellow and then solid red with skipping the green. I think that has to do with the number of vehicles that are in line to go. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, that flashing yellow light does go to green. And for me, I've got nowhere to be. I'm a patient driver. And I'm not trying to get through that light. I'll sit there for the whole thing if I need to. But it's just what I see other people do, especially when I'm driving west, is they're popping through there and they don't see anybody coming.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Woodrow Trail. Do you recognize any other directions or any other issues with that intersection? Is it just going eastbound or turning off into Gresham? Or what about coming west on the same intersection?
Well, the westbound lanes, the thing that I look out for, because I'm a resident here and drive the roads all the time, is I'm looking for somebody turning left on that flashing yellow in front of me. Definitely afraid of it. So I'm usually going under the speed limit in the far right-hand lane so that I have the ability to take evasive action if necessary. What I don't like, it's easy enough for me to do. I'm familiar with the area, but I don't think that it is apropos to have a traffic control situation where it's potentially dangerous. I'm calling it dangerous, where you have a dangerous traffic control device situation and you're not from the area, then you're not paying attention to that. And, so I've lived here long enough to know that, that straightaway from Troutdale Road up to 257th,
Right.
people punch it there, and they're going way above the speed limit often. I also would say that the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office is doing a fantastic job, and the captain back, or your chief back there, is doing a fantastic job in policing this city. But, they got rid of their traffic division over 15 years ago. And, it's very difficult to get those things back. So that kind of stuff is, the easy fix is take away the flashing yellow there. And, I think it's a road department thing. The fatal crash is going to happen on our side of that intersection, not Gresham's.
So, okay, so that would be your recommendation, if you had a say, would be just never have it do a flashing yellow.
Just make it green.
So it's either green or it's not, and that's
Yes.
it.
In
Okay.
that particular, and because of the nomenclature of the roadway and the line of sight, it's just not there.
Those directions, especially because as you're facing east, getting ready to turn north.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
I invite you to go turn there if you haven't.
I live right in the area.
Yeah,
there,
so-
And I would have argued that I think we should have a flashing yellow as I wait to make a turn heading down the hill as I'm heading south and then gonna go east.
Yes,
Because I could wait and I say nothing's going and I'm just wasting time.
and you have a
on
good
my-
line of sight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So I
but
appreciate what you're saying.
and I think, I don't know, those things just appeared. And I don't even remember any, PR with regard to this is the new thing and this is how you deal with it. But yeah, if you're facing southbound to turn eastbound, you have a good line of sight. That would be a good one. And as our population continues to increase here, and as businesses continue to grow out in East County, and, with the college, et cetera, there's the congestion of traffic coming up that hill is increasing all the time. So,
Okay,
Thank you.
Was the presentation last month, was there any changes to that traffic signal included in that?
I'll have to check into who's in charge of that traffic signal. But thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome, and I appreciate your guys' willingness to be on this committee and the work that you do. And, you know, I'm just gonna put in a plug for the sheriff's office. They're doing a fantastic job.
Right, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And do we have your contact information?
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we reached out to you?
Yeah,
and
that'd be
if you have
great.
any other questions and?
Yeah, you know, I think the next call is probably to either whoever owns that signal. But good luck with
Yeah,
that.
we'll check and we'll get back to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Shelby Stephenson. I was gonna say, I think that road is, that section down the hill is on the TSP to be redone. I don't know how soon it is, but that road, but that's a ways off, so anyway.
More
All
public
right,
comment?
any other-
More public comment?
Any other public comment?
Did you
Paul,
sign in?
anything tonight? No?
That's public comment. I think
Okay.
Ray had
Oh,
something.
you still have public comment.
On the line?
Actually, this is, yes, public comment.
Okay.
As a result of the last speaker. One, yes, that is Multnomah County
That's
intersection. They control both Stark and 257. And so it's their call what goes on there. If you're gonna make any suggestion at all, it's probably a good time to do it soon, since in the next year, that 257th improvement that may be happening, it's a good time to review it. But, and this is just a plug, and it's not on the agenda, obviously, and it's, you'll probably talk about it again in a couple of months. That is one of the two places that I have suggested that you might want to consider recommending that we do one of those red light cameras, because that intersection is so busy and trucks go through that stretch. That was another suggestion that I had that we'll, talk about in a couple of months, but that's that intersection there, because it is so dangerous, so.
So we could put up a red light camera there even though Multnomah County's in charge?
Yeah, because the north half of the intersection is ours, so it'd be situated such to catch people who were actually doing a violation within the city of Troutdale. But gosh, I'm just thinking out loud, which gets me into trouble. I would guess that if we connected with the Gresham Police Department, they, cooperate with using it either direction for them. So anyway, that's my public comment.
No further public comment? Okay, we will close public comment and Mr. Ray Young, the city manager here, is to talk to us about the city's emergency plan.
Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me tonight to come and talk about the emergency operation plan. While I was here, I have a whole list of updates on 5 topics, so I'm going to use my bully pulpit right now, since you gave me the microphone, to cover a couple other issues that I think are important for the PSEAC to be aware of. First of all, the emergency operation plan is the city document that is created that in any emergency situation, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, rioting, whatever it is, it lays out how the city operates, how we operate in terms of command and control, in terms of logistics. It just lays out a policy and who's in charge of doing what. So it's a very clear line of communication and responsibility to hopefully handle the emergency as best as possible. The city of Troutdale currently has an emergency operation plan that was dated in 2010. But you can see it's quite a substantial document. And it is important to have on your shelf just in case you need it. And since this has not been updated in so long, it's pretty well useless in terms of naming things and people and phone numbers, and it needs to be really evaluated. So that's what the project would create. Well, through the work of Councilor Glantz and Fairview Councilor Wendy Lawton, they were able to get a $200,000 grant awarded to the 3 cities to update the emergency operation plan. So a great shout out goes to them for getting us that grant. The grant is a pass-through, it's a federal money that passes through the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization that then actually is administered by the city of Portland. City of Troutdale is what's called a sub-recipient, and the city of Troutdale, we kind of trade off with the 3 cities. When there's a 3-city grant that's supposed to apply to Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview, we all kind of take turns administering the grant. So the city of Troutdale took responsibility to administer the grant and to work to get it completed. Well, some cities in this situation, I've talked to a number of cities who have done this. Some cities have done this within the last 5 years, and they're updating them already. And for them to go to one that's only 5 years old, oh, it's easy. You know, they just change a few things because there hasn't been any substantial changes. Ours is now 14 years old. And we felt, and I've had conversations with the city of Portland emergency people, Multnomah County emergency people, and it would be good to have a consultant help us prepare one. Each of the 3 cities needs to get one. So I go out to start looking for companies who do that. And I also, by the way, every 3 months, I have to give an update to the city of Portland about the status of it. I have to get an update to the RDPO, and one of them's due by Friday. So they're always checking on me, what's going on. Well, I started searching for consultants who could do it. And one of the things I did was I went to all the other cities around Northwest and see who did theirs last. Oh, those must be the companies I want to do it. So one of them that we've used in the city before for work out on the urban rural area was a company called Stantec. So I got a hold of Stantec, and Stantec does a lot of consulting work, and they sent me a bid to do the work. I think the bid was for like $120,000 to do an emergency operation plan for each of the 3 cities, and then do what's called a tabletop exercises, where you kind of practice through, you know, how you'd operate under an emergency. And then the additional monies would be used, it could be used for education of the citizens about what would happen in the case of emergency. So they seem to have plenty of money. Well, the way public procurement works, I don't have to put out an RFP to see who answers me. I just have to get, you know, several bids so I can make sure that the one is chosen is justified as a reasonable price for the delivery. Well, last fall I spoke with Portland State, and they have an officer that does a lot of this consulting work. Very nice lady, talked to her. She gave me a rough estimate over the phone of what it would cost, about the same as Stantec. I said, great. So once I got all the rules figured out in December, I reached out to Portland State again. So I need a kind of a formal bid for the job. I think she vanished. She ignores my emails. I don't hear from her at all. I don't know where she went, so I hear nothing from her. Okay, so I went and I got a hold of another company called Environmental something. It was a company who had done the EOP for the city of Bend, city of Ashland, a city up in Washington. So I said, great, they've done them recently. So it took me a month and a half to find anybody alive at that organization. It's this huge multinational corporation. Well, I finally got a call back, and I found out what happened was the company that did those EOPs for those other cities was eaten up by a large international firm. And right now they're really not doing that type of work anymore. So I'm having a meeting tomorrow morning Monday morning at 9 o'clock with a procurement officer at the city of Portland to help me through this predicament of, do I really have to go find 2 more bids or not? So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. So we have a year to spend the money. So we're not pushing up against the timeline right now. And assuming there's no big emergency that comes between now and then. But so that's what I'm working on right now, is to finish up getting the procurement done so that we can begin the emergency operation plan. They told me before it's probably about a 5 to 6 month process to come up with a plan for the 3 cities and then tabletop. So if we can get that done in the next month or so, we should be done by next fall. Then plenty of time within the grant, and then we can figure out an educational program for the citizens as to what to do in an emergency. So any questions on the EOP and what we're doing on it?
Twyla?
Thank you. This is Twyla. So just a couple quick questions. In the industry that I work for, we have to do like yearly hazard vulnerability assessments to kind of look at changes and patterns. Is there a standard that we have to do those, or frequency as a city, or is that just part of the emergency operations plan and that person who comes?
You can't quote me on the rules, but when it comes to a natural hazard mitigation plan, that has to be done every, I think, 5 years to update those things. And it covers just natural hazards like lahars, when you have have a volcano go off and a big mud flow comes down. The levee breaks, in the Columbia River, and you get huge flooding and major ice storm. The fire in the gorge, 6 years ago. And we do that in cooperation with Multnomah County. Multnomah County handles that for all of the cities in Multnomah County. And they just did an update of that one last year. So that's the one that gets updated. So you can update what environmental conditions are going on. And normally a natural hazard like that will affect more than just Troutdale, and that's why we all trust Multnomah County. Now, they work with us to create it, and so there's that plan. I didn't bring it because it's larger than this one, I think.
It's called a thyra.
So it sounds like
Yeah.
we have this, and then we also have the
Yeah.
county piece.
Yeah, this is just for general, any emergency that happens in the city of Troutdale, this is how things operate. So, and that one's just for generally the whole county-wide, how that operates. And the room you're sitting in now is generally anything in East County, it's the Emergency Operations Center. It was created for, but it was built for that purpose, because if you look around and see all the dedicated outlets, those orange outlets, that's because there's a lot of people. When the fire was in the gorge 6 years ago, this room from wall to wall was tables with Multnomah County and City of Portland and Multnomah County Sheriff's Office employees. Everything from somebody from the animal shelter had a table and a computer and a desk and a phone to contact people who needed to get their animals out of the gorge and things like that. So it's set up, and you can see all the phone jacks too. This room was set up for that, and it's supported by a generator. So it was designed for that. So we do have a nice facility for any emergency, whether it's regionally or just in the city.
Awesome. So my background kind of touches upon this a little bit, and I'd love to be able to help you in any way, shape, or
Okay.
form.
Thank you.
So before moving up here, we created what was essentially a federal executive board. Have you heard of what those are? FEB. So Federal Executive Board was a group that got together to coordinate, emergency reaction. But it was done back in the early 50s when Phoenix was just a dot on the map. So we had to create our own little FEB. There is an FEB up here in Portland, and that's the national structure of disaster recovery. Then of course there's the county at the thyra level, and then of course the cities and the regional. So I was the CFO for our FEB, and we had $3 million budget, and so we did a lot of exercises between cities, municipalities, and the different large businesses, hospitals, and things like that. So I'd love to share what I have, and there are a few people that used to do our tests, and we had technical type tabletops, and we had practical type exercises. And of course, we had 2 Super Bowls during that time frame too, which we all met and discussed what we would do during those types of responses. So I'm willing to help out if I can.
So I'll update you as soon as we have a contract and we start the process.
Cheryl.
So years ago, I was involved in a CERT program. Do we have that here? CERT this is Washington State, so
Community emergency response team.
right?
No, we don't have one in the city. It's something we've talked about with Multnomah County, and when we've had the seminars, every other year we do a disaster preparedness seminar with Multnomah County for its citizens, and we've talked about that. To do that, we need to be able to recruit some citizens who want to take charge of it. They want to lead that, because that's where it comes from. I'll get going on this. The most important thing that the citizens can do is know your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
That's rule number 1 in any CERT organization, is make sure everybody knows your neighbors. Because in an emergency, potentially you may have only them to help you. Because the roads may be out, ice may be bending down. If you have, especially if elderly people or disabled people, they better know, who their neighbors are. So that is a great idea. We should, and maybe next time I think about it, we should put out a little feeler out there, maybe the Champion or online, to see if anybody's interested in being part of an organization of organizing it.
So I think we went through the fire department.
Fire department.
It was either that or the police department where I lived at the time, but they did some amazing trainings, and then we even started where we would meet in the neighborhoods, so people would come and we would talk about who do you reach out. I think it's inevitable that we're going to have a disaster, and you're going to be people are gonna wanna come here, and if this place isn't gonna be available, which I live up above, right? This place may not be available for me to come down the hill, because I may not be able to make it down the hill. It would be nice to know, okay, so we're gonna do this team here and this team here, you know, because we have this elementary schools as well, and so I don't know how that would connect. I think that'd be a great thing for us to look into anyway.
You know, it would be a really good idea. You know, if Chief Lewis from the Gresham Fire Department was sitting right here in my seat, maybe you could ask him that question.
He'll be here
Wait,
next
maybe next month
month.
he'll be here. He's already communicated to me any things that you guys may want to ask him. That was the last thing I was going to ask you guys on my list of 5 things, but I'll put that down for him to be prepared about what they do in Gresham in that regards, and so he'll be prepared for that.
Would you add on your list to talk to him?
Yes.
Scout Explorer post.
I will, I'm going to go down to number 5 on my list now. Might as well get this out of the way. All right. What's the question you want him to?
Scout Explorer post for fire.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. Anything else when Chief Lewis comes next month that I should tell him to be prepared for? I told him to generally bring the report that, you know, first of all, think about, he gave the council a report 2 weeks ago, kind of maybe do the same thing with you. I have a note on my calendar to give you the last quarterly report from the fire department. And also, just so you know, there is a fire users board, 3 cities fire user board. So every 2 months, one council member and the city managers of the 3 cities meet with the fire department and go over the last quarter's numbers and just talk about what's going on in the fire department. And for the city of Troutdale, that would be myself and Councilor White are part of the user board for Troutdale. So that is something that is generally monitored, what's going on there, but you know, I'll have him bring those statistics so you'll be up to date on that also, and those 2 issues, search and Scout Explorer. And anything else, email me if you think of something after meeting, I'll tell him.
What about ambulance? Will he have any data about?
That's number 3 on my list.
Thank you.
See, I read minds. No, I don't. I wish. Yes, I'll get to that one in just a second.
Awesome.
So anyway, if anything about, if you would like Chief Lewis, any topic you want to be prepared for, let me know in the next couple of weeks. I never like to have a guest come to any meeting in the city and not be prepared to answer questions. No gotchas. I don't think that works in the public realm. It works much better if they come prepared to answer your questions, even if we don't like to hear the answer. So great that on that one. Number 2 on my list was just to update you on what Carol and Twyla have been doing in their spare time on the Public Safety Working Group, just so you're aware. Oh, Victoria, yes. Sorry, I was thinking, oh, that's right, you guys have 3. I was thinking you guys had 2, like the council and the budget committee. My apologies to the chair. They are meeting once a month. When it comes to police, we're working under the recommendation of, 1, we have a consultant who is creating a budgetary scenario for what it would cost to recreate the Troutdale Police Department, and then what it would cost to pay for a Troutdale Police Department on an annual basis, just so we have that number. Citizens always ask, well, why don't we get the Troutdale Police Department back? Well, we should have an answer that it's because it will cost X amount, and whatever the number is, then that one might help inform that decision. The second thing is that they gave me direction on how to take our current contract with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office in terms of what our staffing and FTE levels is, and make some changes in that, and request that they begin coming up with a bid proposal for what the next 10-year contract would look like if we go with them. The recommendation was to take the chief FTE position, which is currently budgeted to be paid at a 2/3 position, make it a full-time position, and the only primary duty they would have would be to the citizens of Troutdale. It's really difficult at this point because every chief we've had has generally had a primary major job with the sheriff's office, and they get to be our chief too. And it is no reflection on any of them. They've never been able to spend 2/3 of their time here, and that's what we're paying for. So let's just go the full Marianne, full banana, full boat, whatever you want to call it, and just pay for 1 FTE, but actually really know that we're getting 1 FTE. The other thing is that in our current plan, we have a 0.5 FTE, which was envisioned 9 years ago to be 2 beach deputies in the summer. But what we have found, and the thing is that they work for the city of Troutdale. So if it was raining, you know, at the weekend down at Glen Otto, well, the Chief Anderson, the last chief, or other chiefs would just reassign to do something else in the city, no big deal. They were just regular officers. And so we have found in working with the sheriff's office that the contract was pretty strict, and we kind of tweaked a little bit so they didn't have to imprison them down at Glen Auto Park on a rainy Friday or Saturday. That we decided, let's just do this. Why don't we just take that 0.5 and make it a second resource deputy, like we have Nick Bohr, just make that half-time, make it a full-time, and then that individual could, in the summer when it's sunny, sure, be down there at Glen Auto when we need them down there, but the rest of the year, or when it's raining, they would be assigned to do other things in the city, such as more traffic enforcement, something that we don't have anybody dedicated to that. So it gives us a little more coverage. And the other thing about having a full-time chief is that that chief would have more direct involvement in managing presumably 2 resource deputies, and we've talked about including in that our code compliance officer also. So that's almost like a mini Troutdale Police Department that we have a little bit more direct control over than the 2 standard patrol deputies that we have in the city 24/7. So that's what they are recommending. We're working on in terms of the police contracts. And then on the fire, we had a meeting on Monday night with Victoria, Carol, and Twyla. And on Monday night, we had some number of assignments, such as they thought might as well ask, because the fire equation is much more complicated because of we contract with the city of Gresham, who is struggling to afford their own fire service, which is why they have a bond levy on for May a second time. They lost the first one. And because there are other options for fire service which allow us some control. Right now, we have no control. We're just a contract. We don't have any say in how they operate the system, which doesn't mean they're operating poorly, but we're just a customer and we can't tell them what to do anything, and they send us a bill. They've also threatened to substantially increase our bill for the next 10 years. 2 different council meetings in the last year, they have had that comment made by a council member and the mayor. And I'm talking, right now we're paying like 2.6 million. They're talking the range of almost doubling that in that contract. Because they say, we should be paying the same amount as the Gresham citizens pay for fire. And we say, well, you give us a choice in who the chief is and what your budget is, and you give us the same response times. Well, maybe we'll talk about it. But until you can do those things, it's like, why would we pay the same if we're not getting the same? Anyway, so that's why this is a little more complicated. So Jensen Strategies, who I'm gonna ask them to see if they'll do the same thing like they're doing for us now for the police, creating a budget for what it would be to create our own. And I think in that scenario, because a fire department has to, the economics of scale mean small city fire departments don't do very well in terms of providing the services you need, because in the city of Troutdale, we have everything from a little single family home up in Sweetbriar all the way to a $250 million, 2.5 million square foot Amazon fulfillment center in town, would provide a lot of challenges if there's a fire emergency. And so you have to have a lot more options. So it probably will be if it's 3 cities, Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview, just see what it costs if the 3 cities decided to combine together, go one. So that's one of the things that we'll be working on. The next meeting, they're going to have, I'm going to ask Mike McKeel, who's on the board of Fire District 10, to come, because one of the other options that up until the 80s and 90s, the primary fire service out in all of East County was Fire District 10. It still exists, but it simply collects property taxes from a few small pockets in Multnomah County, and they pay it to Gresham to provide fire service. So the issue is, should that be recreated? And it's something that Gresham is actually thinking about also, because that would provide a separate property tax base to support fire, and it would be more stable funding. So he's going to come talk about what a fire district is next month. We hope EV is available. The other thing is that Gresham got a study from Eco Northwest, which is a large economic analysis firm in Portland, to do the same thing for what would it mean to Troutdale if we did join a fire district? What would be the cost involved? What would be the impact on the citizens? So I'm going to check and see if they do that for us. The other thing is we're going to try to find out is that right now we have asked the 3 mayors have sent, I hate to call it the man letter because it's not in that tone, but it's like, hey, can we go back to talking about fire again? Because we had the Safer Council for a number of years, and then the Gresham pulled the plug on it 2 years ago, and I won't get into the details of why. But we were collaborating with the 4 cities, and that ended. And so we're asking them, let's get back to collaborating again for a solution. And we really want to talk about what the next contract looks. And they haven't responded yet. And as I told the committee on Monday night, the problem is I think they're in a poker game with us, and they haven't got dealt their cards yet. Because until they see the results of their bond levy in May, they won't know what their position is. If the bond levy passes, they might go, oh, good, we're good for another 5 years, because that's all the bond levy lasts for. And they may not be willing to look at a fire district. But if it fails again, they may find themselves looking a little more closer at other options to finance the fire department. So we may have to wait till May election to figure out how much Gresham's going to put into working with the three of us. Not that they're not wanting to work, but I think they're just waiting to see what happens there. So those are some of the things that we're going to be doing. I also am going to go speak to the fire district board, and I've talked to a couple of their members, but also talked to the whole board, public meeting, and say, this is what the three cities are looking to do, and get their sense of it. I generally, in the ones I've talked to, the board members, they're open to working with us. They're fire people, they like doing fire, that's all they do is fire, and they would like to support us as best they can, because they're a customer of Gresham also.
It's District 10, right?
Yes, Fire District 10.
Okay.
So those are all the things that are going on now to work on our fire. This is what the committee came out of. So, and then back to my list, that was number 3, ambulance. I don't know if you've been reading the paper lately. There's been a real battle going on in Multnomah County between, and I'll just say, it's not necessarily the whole Multnomah County Commission, it's the chair and a couple of commissioners, and it's primarily one, Jessica Vega Peterson and her health advisor on staff. I will just say, I could go on in the whole details, and Ray likes to ramble on here, but this evening online, you should be able to get the packet for Tuesday night for the council meeting. And in the packet is everything you need to know about the dispute and what's going on. The primary problem is Multnomah County is one of the few jurisdictions in all of the United States that requires 2 paramedics per ambulance. Most areas only require 1 paramedic and 1 EMT. The problem is it's hard to hire and find paramedics. And so they are understaffed by like 35%. And so the county won't let them send out ambulances without 2 paramedics in it. So what happens is ambulances don't show up till way late. They really don't. And so people are not getting a quick ambulance response. And so go through the council packet. It'll update you exactly. And the council is going to be asked to pass a resolution calling on the Multnomah County Commission chair to immediately allow for a pilot program. AMR, who provides the ambulance service contract, they have asked the chair, can we do a pilot program? Will we staff some of our ambulances with 1 paramedic and 1 EMT and see what happens? There are also in the packet for the council meeting on Tuesday night, 3 studies from around the United States saying there is no outcome difference between 2 paramedics and 1 paramedic and an EMT. And it's incredulous that the county is really being a stick in the mud on this issue. The chair, like you said, Wendell, really one person being a stick in the mud. And that one person has met with the 3 mayors and tried to justify it. The mayors and have sent them letters asking for them to change. And in the packet, you will see additionally in there, Fire District 10 has passed a board resolution saying, stop the madness, let's try some EMTs in there. The city of Gresham has passed a resolution saying, stop the madness, let's try some EMTs for a while. And your city council on Tuesday is doing the same. So get the packet, you'll read, all the details on that issue. So good topic. And finally, number 4, and this is for Tuesday night also. Another reason to watch the council meeting on Tuesday night, Councilor White has asked for a discussion item on Tuesday night to talk about the potential narrowing of 257 through the county's safety upgrades for pedestrians and bicyclists. And so in the packet is, of course, what the county came last summer and gave the city an update on what they were doing. That information is back in the packet for Tuesday night. I've checked to see if Multnomah County can be available, at least by Zoom, for the meeting to answer any questions that the council has. And so if you're interested, if you have a concern, by Zoom or in person, give public testimony as to what your thoughts are about it. There's no action item for Tuesday night, but Council White, let's just talk about it. Let's just make sure we don't have any problems here or concerns that we want to express to the county. Now, it's the county's road. They can do what they want, but they do care about, the city in which it's located and our feelings. So anyway, so that'll be on for Tuesday night. At least the council will be talking about it. And you can obviously do public comment.
That would be good because we had lots of conversation about that the last meeting.
Mm-hmm. I heard this.
If you heard, I'm sure you heard it.
Yeah.
So I'll be here.
Okay, cool.
It'll be good.
Personally, I haven't spent a lot of time investigating the issue. I just know it's a concern and I understand why. And so we just got the information there, and so the public can talk about it on Tuesday night, and Council can decide what they want to do after that, but usually at that point, they will make recommendations if they want staff to do anything beyond that, but the chance for the council to talk about it publicly. Those are the 5 things. I took my EOP and I made,
This is Sherry. I just had a question. How long has Multnomah County been under this 2 EMTs or 2 paramedics having to be on?
I understand the contract started in 2016. It's supposed to expire in 2025 or 26. I think it's a 10-year contract.
So prior to that, it had been 1 and.
I don't know actually what it was before that. I've never been in an ambulance. I don't know in Multnomah County. But that's a good question.
No, I seem to think that one of her sticking points is the positive effect that this has on cardiac patients. Is that what you understand as well?
That may be one of the concerns, but
So,
I don't know. The thing is, as far as I understand, and again, I've talked to AMR about it, and I've seen all the press releases from Multnomah County and JVP on it. They claim that studies support better outcomes for 2 paramedics. My understanding is the one study they have is from South Korea, a whole different culture, a whole different system. And they say, well, there's a national standard. Well, it comes from the Paramedic Association, national standard. Well, of course, they're going to say 2 paramedics. But nobody, really, I'm not kidding, 95% of all the jurisdictions in the United States do not require 2 paramedics.
well, and again, it's, not a great analogy, but when there's a crisis team called out for, interaction with a seriously mentally ill person or person with a serious mental illness, they don't send 2 master level counselors out. It's always a master, intermediary, beginner. So I don't know if there's a parallel that could be drawn that, from a behavioral health perspective, we don't do that type of response either.
The other thing is that on most of any of these major medical calls, Gresham Fire shows up too, and they always have a paramedic with them. So there's already 2 paramedics. And if you can ask the chief when he's here next month, but he says is that if they need that fire paramedic to go in the ambulance, they jump in the ambulance and help them out. Because, one of the paramedics has to drive the car anyway, so they're not helping on the way back to the hospital. So.
Twyla.
Yes, this is Twyla. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that working in the emergency room for a while, one's always driving. And then if it was a code 3, you would have one of the firefighters coming through back in and helping. So there's.
I was pretty impressed that Chief Lewis was pretty indignant that the chair, JVP, Jessica Vega Peterson, was claiming that it was a burden upon the Gresham Fire. And he says, nobody called us to ask us that. We're fine with what's going on. Because we show up anyway, usually for these major medical calls. So it's like, we do it anyway. So it seems to be grasping of straws in the leadership of Multnomah County on this issue. But they have agreed to do a study. 9 months, 8 or 9 months, whatever. It's in one of the press releases I attached to the council package, so you can read it yourself. I won't try to give you the details, but there's information. So the county is moving, but as usual, not very quickly. Government loves studies because they don't like to make hard decisions without the coverage of a study because, risk. But people are not getting ambulances in time. And so on the ground, it's causing a problem. Thank you all for your service. If nothing else.
No other questions? Any questions? Paul? No?
I'd
Well,
love to
thank
stay,
you, Ray.
but my wife is coming back from being gone for 5 days and I have to go clean the kitchen. Flying in tonight. Oh, it's not dirty, I keep it clean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the February 1st, 2024 meeting minutes. Any comments, corrections?
This is Sherry. I reviewed it earlier and it looked fine, at least what I said.
Nothing
We have a
glared out at
motion
me.
to approve the minute.
Chris Carroll, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for February 1st, 2024.
Mrs. Twyla, I second.
Thank you. Motion approved.
All those in favor?
Aye. A review of the monthly law enforcement report from the chief.
Good evening, Honorable Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Captain Doug Asbo from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, Chief of Police for the City of Troutdale, and this is the monthly law enforcement activity report for the month of February. In reviewing the monthly activity report, we saw that there was 863 calls for service this month. That is an increase over last month and an increase over our previous year's average. So I was looking at where some of those increases were. And the largest increase was, there was over 50 traffic stops additional this month that we didn't have in the previous month. And we were about 41 or 42 traffic stops over where we are generally in previous year. Additionally, there was about 31 extra targeted patrol, which is any of those kind of extra patrol duties that deputies may do on their discretionary time when they're not assigned to calls. And then we did have an increase in theft reports or theft calls. Now, that being said, we have also increased our retail theft missions in East County, including the city of Troutdale. So that probably accounts for a percentage, or a large percentage of that increase in theft reports, because we're getting those reports that may not have been reported because they know we're out here specifically targeting those crimes. So realistically speaking, if we were to look at that, you take away those extra patrols and that mission driven increase in theft reports, we're actually below where we normally would be in the previous month and in the previous year.
This is Sherry. Do you mind if I just ask a question in this part, or you don't want me to, let me know?
Sure, up to the chair.
When you said the traffic stops, that large, over 50 extra ones, that's different than the targeted patrols?
Are you talking about the extra targeted patrol? And
I'm actually down there where it just says traffic stops, and it shows 203 for this current
Right.
29 days, as opposed to 148. for
so
the
traffic
previous.
stops are just exactly that. They're when a deputy makes a traffic stop on a vehicle. Extra targeted patrols can be, maybe they do a vacation home check for somebody, or they are aware that maybe there's been some issues at a particular location, so they're going by that location at varying hours just to check, and they're listing that in their computer system as being out on a call. So that creates these extra patrols.
Okay, so on the one that's the traffic stop, that looks like the numbers are so much higher than the previous time. Just for my understanding, like, what would generate that, do you think? I mean, is there something to go in society, or you say this holiday, or, I mean, like, I don't know, I can't.
Well, all those things that you mentioned could potentially, depending on the time of year, be created increase in that. I think for us, we have been for almost a year now asking all our patrol sergeants to conduct additional missions outside of regular patrol. So we do have an overlap period where we have actually on every shift where we have both shifts here at the same time. So we're utilizing that time to work some special missions. A lot of those are focused on traffic safety. As was mentioned earlier, we haven't had a traffic safety team for some time, so we're looking at ways that we can increase our ability to do those traffic safety missions. So I think by having essentially 8 additional missions, many of which are traffic safety a month, we're going to see those increases in extra patrols and in those traffic stops, just because we're putting a focus on those and we're putting more deputies out working on those.
So in this 29-day period, would it have included the Super Bowl, and there could have been an extra targeted patroller? Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
So moving to the next page, there was 401 dispatch calls for service and 462 self-initiated calls for service. Of the dispatch calls for service, 53 of those were priority 1 or 2 emergency calls for service, and 256 of those were non-emergency calls for service. Next page is the accident report. I reviewed the accident report, as I always do, to see if there's any place where we have a consistent number of accidents in any given month. And although I will say many of these locations are places that we consistently have accidents over a year or several month period of time, there wasn't anything that stood out that, particularly for this month, that indicated any kind of patterns. Next page just shows some of the community contacts and community meetings that deputies have put themselves out on. So essentially, anytime a deputy might go out and have a meeting, maybe with a business owner or a community member, they have the ability to put themselves on their computer as doing that. A lot of times those are kind of impromptu, so they don't put themselves out on them, so they may be doing them, but it's just maybe somebody waved them down or they stopped to talk to people. These where we have like one as an example on the 27th was 40 minutes. A lot of times those may be a pre-planned meeting with a community member or a business. So that's kind of what those mean. We, obviously we track them. We just understand that a lot of times deputies aren't pre-planning those. They're just stopped as they're patrolling the city. Looking through the calls for service log, which is the big thick part that goes the other direction. As always, I review the calls for service log to see if we have patterns of criminal activity or an increase in a particular type of crime. As I look through this month, I didn't see any particular patterns or substantial increases in particular types of crime. I also didn't note anything that was extraordinary or specifically noteworthy that isn't typical of any given month within the city.
Is there a chance I can interrupt here again too?
Let's wait till it's done.
Okay, I just feel like it goes in with this, so I thought you could, okay, it's fine.
Going to the stolen vehicle report. And this first page is vehicles actually reported stolen. You can see for this 29-day period, there were 6 vehicles reported stolen. Last month, there was only 3. And the previous day's average was, or previous months or year's average, I apologize, was 4.9. So I did see that there was an increase in vehicles stolen. As I looked through where the vehicles were stolen, I saw that some of those were in similar areas. So I'm asking Deputy Bloor to pull all those stolen vehicle reports and see if he can identify potential patterns or suspects that may be involved in all those. So hopefully I'll have an update on that in the future, or we'll see a decrease in those. Or he'll be at least able to tell me if there looks like there's any connection to these or not.
Chief, sorry. What's under the last one, the make, PTRB model 579?
That Peterbilt
Yeah,
semi?
yep.
Oh, very nice.
Next page is recovered vehicles. And I know that it is, we've had a conversation about these times when there's no numbers in there. So I talked to our statistics folks, and They said that that was just how the system was designed, and it doesn't put zeros, it just leaves a no value there when it's a zero. So they reprogrammed the program to put zeros there. So in the future, you should see zeros there. But for this particular one, we didn't have any recovered stolen vehicles in the city for this 29-day period, nor did we have any in the last 29-day period. And on a yearly average, we have 1.7. Moving to the IGA activity reporting. So there was a total of 203 traffic stops, as we discussed earlier. Of those 203 traffic stops, the breakdown equated to 150 warnings issued. 36 were non-criminal citations issued. 4 of those is where a criminal citation was issued in lieu of arrest. There was 4 where there was a report written but not an arrest made. And then we had 3 that resulted in actual physical custody arrests of individuals. And then we had a couple where they were either there was no clearance code. Generally, that's a situation in which maybe a deputy starts to make a traffic stop, and before actually conducting that traffic stop, they may get dispatched to a higher priority call, and so dispatch will just clear them out of that call, and they don't actually have an opportunity to put in a clearance code. Assignment completed usually indicates that they may have made a traffic stop, or they may have accidentally been assigned a traffic stop, and they just end up clearing the call as whatever I was doing, I'm done with now, because I wasn't actually on a traffic stop. So I usually don't mention those just because they aren't really important to the big number. They just end up getting in there a few times. So sometimes it's just fumbling fingers or things like that that may create that traffic stop versus it actually being a real traffic stop. Moving on to the next page, we talk about detective case activity. So there were 19 additional cases assigned to detectives out of Troutdale. As we look at those cases, I look down to the disposition of Troutdale cases, and I can see that 15 of those cases have ultimately been disposed. There's kind of a breakdown there of how those are disposed. So inactive suspended or inactive suspended because of lack of tangible leads is basically where they close the case out pending some further information to work forward on that case. You can see in some cases we have ones that are inactive or suspended because the victim chooses not to proceed with the case. Sometimes we identify that after we actually look at it, there is no criminal offense related to it. Referred basically means that we look at the case and figure out that it falls under another jurisdiction, or that there's a more appropriate organization or agency to investigate that case. So maybe it's a case that got reported here because the community member who reported it lives in Troutdale, but ultimately it occurred in Portland. So that case may get referred to Portland for them to do the follow-up on. And then we had 4 that were unfounded, which essentially means they looked into the case and they didn't find that it to be factual, or that they didn't find that it occurred. Ultimately, big picture, in looking at countywide cases, there were 10 cases closed and in Troutdale, and 5 additional cases. So they're closing not only cases that occurred this month, they're also closing some of the previous cases that they've gotten in other months. And that wraps it up for me.
Okay, let me ask you on the page we're just on, since you said it, down below it says 4 unfounded. When I look up above, I see 2 that are listed as unfounded. Is it because something is deemed unfounded that doesn't say unfounded up above, or?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. So sometimes we will send, or a patrol deputy will send a case to detectives just to give a second look at something. So maybe they don't initially find that there's anything, but they'll send it to detectives who have a little bit more time to dig deep into it, whereas a patrol deputy is responding to calls all day, and get that second look, and the detective will, you know, also find that that case is unfounded and confirm what the deputy thought. So in some cases, that's what happens. In some cases, the deputy has some information they believe, and then during the investigation, the detectives find that, you know, there's maybe a change of information, or somebody changes their story, but ultimately it's deemed to be unfounded.
Okay, but so there's only 2 up above, but then there's listed 4 down below, but that's just because something could now be.
Yeah, so this disposition of Troutdale cases is dispositions of all cases that have ever come from Troutdale.
Okay,
So that may be from a previous month.
okay,
And then if you look over where it says February cases, so those are, it gives that number 10. So of this 19 cases that came in Troutdale this month, 10 of those were closed.
okay, yes. Okay, then I'm gonna go back to the calls for service log. This is for me to make sense of some stuff. As I ran along, I was noticing like dispatch response times and then time on scene and stuff like that. And everything, you know, looks pretty good. I was noticing that the third one on the list there, so it says 2/2/24. It shows 12 minutes and 55 seconds for response to an assault. And it's a priority 2. It seems like most of the other ones have a faster response. I say that, there's a couple other things I noticed in here, but on a priority 2. And it just happens to be in my neighborhood. So I was just kind of curious, based on any of that information there, do you have any indication why it would take as long as it took?
No, I mean, I don't know for that particular case, but what I can say is that, you know, it's very likely that our deputies could have been tied up on another call that required multiple deputies at a different location. And so they may have had to come from a greater distance than normal. There's times where if, you know, we have mutual aid agreements with other agencies. So when our deputies are tied up substantially on calls, that priority calls for service still get responded to. So those officers may come from Gresham PD, or they may come from another location, so it may take longer for them to get there than it would normally. So generally, when you see a unusual, you know, additional amount of time, it's likely because deputies were tied up on other calls, things such as that. And also keep in mind that, you know, there's 2 deputies at all times assigned to Troutdale. So, you know, many of our calls anymore require multiple deputy responses. So it doesn't take many calls to tie up the 7, or depending on shifts, 7 or 8 deputies that we have total just out in all of Multnomah County on any given shift. So, you know, you get 2 or 3 higher priority calls at the same time in different locations throughout the county, you can quickly tie up that entire set of resources there. And then we are dependent on our mutual aid agreements and having those agencies, outside agencies, respond to those, or getting those other calls cleared up before we can respond to that one.
Okay. Again, it's probably curiosity more than I probably need to know. But on the next page, 2-4, it says traffic pursuit. And then the address says they are inside according to call taker that talked to them. I just wonder what that means.
I have no idea.
Okay, okay, that's fair enough. And then if you skip down to the very next page, 2/10/24, very bottom, it says medical assist, and then response time and time on scene, and there's nothing.
I'm sorry, can you tell me the date again, please?
Oh, yeah, 2/10, and it's at the bottom of, I'm gonna assume you have the same pages as us, so
21024, there's a welfare check, a medical assist.
The medical assist there,
Okay.
priority 2, and it's whatever that unit, INFOM, maybe that's what it says.
That's info. So on many medical calls, we will get infoed that medical call, but it's not really a police call for service, it's a medical call for service. And so that goes out to fire or ambulance, whatever is appropriate from the medical world. But dispatch will give us what's called an info call, just to make us aware that it's going on. And part of that is for people who may be cardiac patients, because we have AEDs in our car. And if we're able to respond more quickly and get that AED in place than fire or AMR, then we want to know that that's occurring so we can make that evaluation and see if we can get there first and get that on there. So on anything that has that INFO is just basically where dispatch is giving us a heads up that something's occurring, and it may not apply to us, but we're being made aware of it.
Okay. Yeah, and then I guess there was just, when I went down a ways, just kind of checking out response time. So 212, there's one that's 1542, but you kind of indicate that was an accident injury, and your deputies could be tied up elsewhere, and that could be why. So probably on some of those, that's
Which date was that on?
212, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
The fifth one down, accident injury.
Okay.
And 1200 block Northwest Swigert Way.
Okay, yes, I see that one.
And so just, I guess just like I was noticing on the, time fluctuations on some of them, and that one being 15 minutes, but you already kind of explained that, so.
Yeah.
Twyla's got her hand raised.
Twyla.
Yes. This is Twyla. Just wanted to follow up. I know I believe it was the end of summer. Time is all relative sometimes. We had the person that was knocking down all the signs or persons in Troutdale. I've noticed more signs down in the neighborhood around here. Did we ever find that individual, or is that something still open?
It's still open. We have not made an arrest in that case. I haven't got a report of a sign being down for a long time. So I'll equate that to school starting roughly. But I don't know that for sure. But roughly about the time school started, I haven't at least had a report of a sign down. And Deputy Boer was actually tracking all those sign cases, so he could kind of create himself a heat map of where that was occurring. So if you're aware of some that are being knocked down, please let those folks or give us a call so we can get those added to the list.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the hot topic. Discussion of the 257th improvement project. And Ray has already told you it's on the agenda for Tuesday night. Just a discussion, but if anybody wants to go or be on Zoom, we can make public comment. So, and one of the things I wanted to start off with Mary had emailed me about. I never discuss things on email because we're not allowed, but part of that report that she sent me the thing about how it didn't make sense.
I think it was me.
It was
I think
you?
it was me.
I
that
thought
was
Mary
the-
sent something.
I believe, this is Sherry, I believe Carol
Well,
made
I
a
also
response back,
commented
and then
on it.
Shelby did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't know which one of us, but somebody
that
did.
part where it said, if there's freight trucks coming, the road should not be short,
Narrow.
narrow.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, this is the report that they sent us, that they're not following it. And I went to several of those, and I do not remember them saying they were gonna narrow the road. Yeah, it was fix the sidewalks, put some crosswalks in.
Some bus pullouts, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, and fix near the school, the light at the school. And we were actually on that tour when the trail let out, and you can see.
Just a point of clarification, I think I was on that email, but I'm not the one who said anything
Okay.
about it.
Oh, I thought it was from you, sorry. But I thought that was really interesting, that they sent us a report that they shouldn't be near it at first. Goes on that road, so. I'm hoping, and I'll check with Ray, it'd be really nice if they got the engineer to come to that meeting. Because we didn't have the engineer. So I was thinking of asking him here, but if he can get to that meeting, that'd be great.
It'd be really nice to have somebody from, a freight company come to that meeting. Somebody from Amazon Trucking or some of the numerous lots that are over by the airport that, seems to specialize in trucking. The amount of freight on 257 is what I think it is. They should have some say and would definitely have some pull if, hi, I'm Billy Joe Bob from Billy Joe's House of Trucking, where we do this many trucks and this many trailers on this road. It's a really bad idea.
Shelby,
Could I share that part of the
Yeah.
document?
go ahead.
I'm trying to do this.
I have it on.
Press hold to control. No, is it sharing with you guys?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay, so you probably can't see me show with my finger or my mouse.
Yeah, we can see your arrow lynching.
Yeah.
First bullet point.
Right there.
We could probably highlight it.
Highlight it here, I'll try to do that. Not very good at, oh gosh, come on, I don't know, but it's this section right here, how to do it. I don't know how to share it, but it says, street section with lane width of 11, 12, or 13 feet in urban areas with a 20 to 25 or 30 to 35 mile per hour speed limit that do not serve as a transit or freight corridor should be considered first for lane reduction. So I'm just like, we shouldn't be doing this on this, in this area. The speed limit there on that, I believe is 40 miles an hour. I'm not sure, but freight corridors, the whole thing. This is not recommended for freight corridors, right? Yep, go ahead. You were just gonna say something. So the one other thing, I guess, since I'm still talking, but the one other thing is that I didn't know that this was going to come up on council, but I certainly thought we were all concerned enough that I thought maybe we should write something formally from this committee, if everybody's in agreement that, maybe we all can't be there, but formally from this committee that we are extremely concerned about this lane narrowing. So perhaps we write something formally and we go and bring it to.
I was thinking the same thing, but then when I heard it was coming to council, I was thinking council might be gonna write something. And I did send that to Ray, what they sent us, so I hope they bring that part up, because I thought, here you're giving us justification for why you're narrowing the lanes, but right in there it says not to do it.
Well, I just, in your earlier, sorry, this is Sherry, in your earlier comment, Victoria, on the walking tours and stuff like that. So if you look at the paperwork that you included in our packet this time, And if we go to where it's talking about phase one, the online survey results, and turn that over, the community outreach, phase one summary, that kind of thing. It's giving some indications, and it says focus group discussion. Nearly all participants drive exclusively. It seems to me they're putting this big focus on a bike lane being with a little bit, wider, just to make that other one narrower, and with the idea that it would slow traffic down. I would venture to tell you that as I walked on that survey and participated, or walked on those tours and participated in those surveys, some of the discussion was based on the traffic speed. And like I said last time, coming out of the pandemic, or sort of, there are people that were passing in the middle emergency lane. And I had said, boy, it'd be kind of nice if we just had speed bumps in there so they can't go as fast. I wouldn't expect them to put speed bumps in there. So I feel like some of the conversation, when, even if we're talking about that, we can look at downways where 30 people, I'm believing it's people here, but said widen bike lanes. That goes up, that's a small amount, and that was kind of like pie in the sky if you had everything. I think we just refer people to the bike lane over on 238th, 242nd, if you really want to get up the hill.
Or even
And-
go up Buxton.
Well, yeah, and what I'm just saying is that I think we can see that's like a really wide sidewalk over there, whatever. We'd be better off, I believe they would be better off just widening the sidewalk to whatever, including the bike lane, keeping it up a bit, and then the traffic there, and the freight there, because going in both lanes. If I could say, I've been, even just shortly after our meeting last time, driving on 257, and the bus on the south side of Stark Street on 257 has rounded the corner from Stark onto 257, and it's pulled over there right past the, I think it's a Jack in the Box on the corner. A big truck. I'm in the lane that would be the middle of the two lanes, and we're just getting up to the intersection, and the truck just comes over on me. Thankfully, the left-hand turn lane going, coming from the other direction is already emptied, because I have to go over into it as he just pushes over into me. And, then I speed up as quick as I can to not get hit by him. So I would just say that I just don't believe that it's gonna make it any safer. So I do think we should make recommendations. I think that there's a lot of flaw in what they've done no research on the amount of people that actually ride the bicycle there. So if you haven't been out to see how many people are riding, how do you know that you really even need to do anything? Oh, it's need or want. So when you're given the survey and you say, well, ask for what you want, people say want. But what really needs to be there? And so I'm really, really concerned about that narrow lane. And I think if we look at even what they came about, that hadn't been in their survey. There was no talk about, what would you think if we narrowed a lane and got feedback? It was pie in the sky ideas of wants, and then now they're, putting things in there. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And I never see anybody bicycling on that road. I see them on Buxton and the others, but I never see them on. If they are, they're on the sidewalk.
Yeah, and this is Sherry, sorry. I have on occasion seen a few bicyclists on that road. Somebody riding from the Safeway, some of the time they might be on the sidewalk, think they wouldn't care about riding on the sidewalk as they're carrying their 6-pack of beer and no helmet. So all we need is a good east wind at any time of year that slings a truck over, and if we're encouraging bicyclists to be on the road there, I just think we're wasting our time. So, and I am a bicyclist, so.
Well, I'm encouraging everybody to come Tuesday night or be on Zoom.
And all our friends too.
I just wonder if you guys would like to make formal statement from this group to take to city council. I mean, whether we can all be there or not, it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
Formally, we take an action because we are so concerned about this. And we as a group feel that this needs to be called to council. Understand that public safety really has issues with it. So, go ahead.
Mary.
Howell. I agree with that. I think it would be good to come up with some kind of statement to take to city, even though that we know that it's going to be talked about, but I think we need, since it's kind of been tasked to us, I think we should come up with some kind of statement to hand over to them.
Twyla.
Yes, this is Twyla, and I totally support you guys moving forward with maybe a letter or something that you could all sign. I am still on the fence. I've done a lot of reading and research about different designs and such, and so I don't think I'm as adamant about the argument. So I think I probably would refrain from signing that, but I think that's the power of, dissent, right? We all have different opinions.
Ms. Carroll, I think we should, because, it came to us and we had them come and talk to us, and we have a lot of concerns. And I think that, we should address the city council about our concerns in a letter. But when I'm looking, re-looking through this, I don't live on the corridor. I live off of Troutdale Road. And it could be because I was involved in teaching or whatever, but they sent 3,045 postcards to people who live on the corridor. What about the other 13,000 people that drive that road every day, or, weekly anyway, in Troutdale?
And the trucking companies, they're coming up and down constantly.
And so, I just feel like they feel like, oh, we did this, we gotta we gotta check it off on a box that we did talk to Troutdale residents. You did, but you didn't talk to 18,000, or you didn't contact 18,000 residents to let them know that they were doing all this stuff. I'm glad that Sherry and that you were on, some of the tours. But I'm just concerned, I know I'm anti-Multnomah County making decisions for us anyway, but I just kind of feel like this is another thing of, you can talk about it, you can complain about it, but we're going to do whatever we want anyway, because that's what they tend to do. Even I've seen city council recommend something or talk about something, and they just do it anyway because they don't care what we have to say. And I get really concerned when we have a government agency that doesn't care about the citizens of cities. And
Or just some of the citizens of the city.
well, some of the citizens,
It's just kind of like narrow focused.
well, yeah, they only talk to, it didn't even say how many they talked to. It just says 2 walking tours of over 20 participants. They had 4 focus groups, but there's no documentation of exactly how many people were involved. Just what they did.
Is it true that Gresham got the county to cancel the proposed changes to 287 or Kane on their side of the road?
That I don't know.
I thought so. It was somebody from planning said that Gresham stood up to them, and they aren't going to follow through with the proposed changes on the Gresham side of that.
There's no proposed changes right now in there.
This is Shelby. I think that was mentioned in the meeting, though, that Gresham wasn't going to do this narrowing on the other side. And I think that was from Multnomah County, the engineers. Gresham hadn't signed off on doing that, not to say that they couldn't or that they wouldn't. I think it was just, and we'd have to go back and check the meeting, because that's what I remember kind of hearing.
Twyla.
I do just because I think it was so long ago, probably 2 years ago. They did, the county did come to the Citizens Advisory Committee maybe 2 or 3 times. It was, and they presented back then there. So I contextually, it was presented to that committee a couple of years ago. And then I think they came twice with the proposals, and then we got updates from the person that was helping facilitate that meeting back then. She was great and left.
This Sherry, Twyla, could you clarify? So when they came back there a couple of years ago and talked to you guys, they were already talking about narrowing lanes then?
They were talking about the project and the scope, and then asking people, I believe, to go on the walking tours and to go get involved in feedback. So that was part of their like public campaign of trying to get input from the community. So
I do not remember any narrowing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's exactly it, because that was, I mean, those are some of the things I participated in, being out there, and there was no talk. And so there was nothing in a survey about actually narrowing lanes. So
Is this timely? Hi, Woodrow Trout. Is this timely response to the county? Or are things already in motion?
They haven't started anything yet. I think if council, like you said, Multnomah County, I don't know.
they'll still.
They may listen. I mean, they sent us information that contradicted what it is, so I don't know. So they may listen. So I think between when Glenn presents and talks about it on Tuesday, and if we write a letter or present or do a public statement that night.
Well, so Shelby, do you want to help write that letter?
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
But we would have to, well, maybe we should write it here tonight, because we need to take formal action on it, because it's next week. So I mean, really, we need to
and we
do it
need
tonight,
to
so-
make a motion and vote.
And Woodrow Trout, if we're not unanimous, I don't know if we could or not. I think we'd have to be unanimous to have it come from the committee. Yeah,
why?
No,
it seems like it'd be a good idea.
But we can take a vote right now and say who's for the letter, and if it, I mean, I can, you know,
It depends on the content of the letter too.
well, but if we're gonna be doing it right here tonight,
I think we have to.
well,
Yes.
we really have two main concerns. And that's the main one is the narrowing of the lanes. And then the second one is they're narrowing the lanes to put in a bike lane that nobody's using that road to bike on. Is there any other concerns?
Well, I actually had, the other thing that I didn't care for was the crosswalk at the end of the bus driveway to go across. It's kind of pointless. I mean, it's right.
Is it the 17th Avenue one?
I think that is, I mean, it's between the light that's there right now for the school, and then up there at, I don't know what name's the street. It's the one from Morgan Meadows, you cut in, and so they're not that far apart. There's a little S curve in there, but I believe where they were trying to put the crosswalk was for the students coming out of the school on the bus lane that gets out on 257. And I just feel that is insane. We have a crosswalk here, have another crosswalk. I mean, I think the students, if we need to make a bigger pad for students to stand, and we need to make the crosswalk wider at Cherry Park, I mean, I think that we need to do that. We need to make it more robust up there. But that's the other one that I think was where they're putting that other crosswalk. I don't like the placement of the crosswalk further down on 257, closer up to Stark, because it seems like it's pretty close. But I understand there are problems with how they have to do it. And I think based on their conversations last time, I said, there's just, where we want to put it, it's not going to work for pedestrians, people pulling out of side streets or apartment complexes, they don't have a chance to get in the refuge. So I get it. There's just really, but it would be better to have another crosswalk, because it's a long way from the one that I'm talking about that goes to by the cemetery.
Hensley.
Hensley, I couldn't think of the name of it. From Hensley all the way to Stark, that's too long. We gotta put one in there. We need to put some.
And along those same lines is, if they would have holistically addressed the corridor from Halsey all the way to Stark. Right, they stopped at Cherry Park, and I don't get that. It just seems like an effective study would have been from Halsey to Stark, not Cherry Park to Stark. I just don't. And then of course the focus was on the citizen, or the, I guess, neighbors really, right? Not users, such as the freight lines and the other businesses and the other people, other citizens that, you know, that use it. So
do we want to just write what we want to say in public comment?
I think Sherry says something.
I was just going to, I believe part of the argument would be that there is a divider strip that goes down the middle of 257 from that Cherry Park North down to Halsey. And not that that would have, you know, like the biggest effect or something, but I think they're looking at where people come out at and then how it could affect too. I feel like there was something at a time when somebody brought something up in one of the walking tours, but I'm not going to be 100% on that. I think that's part of it, but yeah. So, and Woodrow also about, you know, we could get comments from trucking companies around here, but the fact is a huge amount of that traffic isn't coming from Troutdale, but rather going through
True.
Troutdale.
Right.
So using that to from elsewhere to elsewhere. So.
Well,
I feel like they might have said the number of vehicles that go through there on a daily basis, and it's probably the population of Troutdale traveling through there daily. I mean, it's a lot.
And I'm with Cheryl, they narrow those, you're gonna have them going down Troutdale Road and
So is it, we're making a motion?
I don't know how to say it. So I would like, this is Carol, I'd like to make a motion that we write a letter.
to present at public comment.
To present at public comment at City Council on Tuesday night regarding our concerns of the corridor safety improvements on 257th.
I'll second it. Shelby Stephenson.
All in favor?
So you're gonna
One
have
abstain?
Yes, I guess I'm abstaining,
well,
or a nay.
so, all right, so strategically thinking, should we address the letter to the people that came and spoke to us and send it to them as well?
They're gonna
I
know.
understood, but I mean, it's like, you know, they come and speak to us, so here's our official response to them, and we're gonna send it to them, but we're gonna read it at the town council meeting. Just point of clarification, just so that we're kind of like, hey, so they have something from us that says, oh, this is what the people we went to go spoke to.
I can email it.
I don't want to burn any bridges, but we're kind of kicking them in the teeth, I guess, I don't know.
I'm, so,
Oh, sorry.
everybody was aye except Twyla abstained.
I don't know about Woodrow.
I didn't say anything, you know, I'm still trying to vet out what we're doing here, so.
Well,
Okay, so then we can do that in a second, but
yeah,
let's do this
we were making
correctly.
a motion.
So we have a motion, we have a second, so if you need to call out.
Okay. Can we do roll call on it?
Yes.
Thanks.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Woodrow Gerald,
Abstain.
Shelley Stephenson,
Yes.
Tori Rizzo,
Yes.
Carl Harrington,
Yeah.
Mary Howell,
Yes.
Shirley Winters,
Yes.
so all in favor except for Rotero and Twyla Harrington with 2 noes.
Okay, so 5, it passes. Okay,
Now we can
now
have a
you're
discussion.
concerned.
I think we should address this to, was it Stephen and Shelley or whoever they were? Who came to visit us? What was the name?
Sarah,
Sarah and
Yeah, those two,
Stephen.
we address it to
Stephen.
them, saying, thanks for coming, here's the things that we're concerned about, and that's what we read at the council. So that, one, I just think it's the appropriate thing to do. They came and gave us their horse and pony show, we tell them in writing what we think of it, and then we read that at the council. I think that just seems like the right thing to do. I don't know.
so, Sherry,
So I appreciate what you're saying, and there might very well be a reason to let them know. I don't believe they're the decision makers at their end. I believe they came to share information to us. I believe our task is, we've been tasked by the city to gather information regarding certain things on safety and so forth. I believe it behooves us and the city to do our job of what we're called to do. And if we feel compelled, this is what we're presenting, since Councilman White has called for this discussion. It happens to be called for this discussion. If he hadn't, I still believe what we should be doing is sending some type of, from us, even if there's a no or an abstention or whatever. If it had been overall no, then it would have made sense that I go whenever they call for it or what have you. But I think as we're tasked, as our committee, it makes sense that we do it and we give it to them. But it's fine if the idea is to send it to the county as well, to tell them that we think that there's these issues. And certainly when you're supporting documentation doesn't support what you're doing, there's a problem.
Right. And again, I think details in the documentation is important. And that creates a paper trail. And yeah, maybe these aren't the right people to receive it, but they gotta do something with it. Right? They're gonna take it, they're gonna put it in their files, they're gonna let other people see it, and if we gotta find out who else needs to get it, and then we get it to the right people. But I think that's just how we should do things.
okay, let's have a motion to send a copy to Multnomah County.
And just adding on to whatever your motion was, is we're gonna address this to those two people, and we're gonna read it at the council meeting.
I don't think that's our protocol.
What is our protocol?
I don't think it's in our, I think it is our responsibility to report to the city council. It's not our responsibility to go over the head of city council and go to the companies that are coming and presenting. I've never seen that done from any of the committees. I've always seen them going through the city council, then the city council is who then, whatever they choose, will then take care of it from there.
Is that our protocol?
This is Carol. I believe so.
Mary,
I am in agreement with Carol, because to me, I think that would ruffle some of city council's feathers.
Right, well,
We're
I
supposed to-
definitely don't want to
we're
ruffle
supposed
anybody's
to-
feathers.
Yeah, that's my opinion. I mean, I just
that's
think,
fine.
All right,
Because
But,
you're
well, I
probably right.
retract my ruffling of feathers
I-
comment.
My point was that Ray said probably somebody from there is, from Multnomah County shouldn't be there,
Right.
so they're gonna hear it.
So, yeah, if that's our protocol, then I retract my motion.
I mean, I can just send a nice email to Sarah and,
No, I think that
It
the
doesn't have to
protocol is
be-
let the council do it.
that these were our concerns. Thank
Okay.
you for coming. All right, so let's get to the letter.
I'm going to interrupt just briefly. If nobody needs anything else from me, then I'm going to leave you to your letter.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes,
Thank you,
can do
Chief.
that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I just like be a little bit informal in that I've got some sentences written here. I don't know if this is what we want to say. Saying our committee name, the PSEAC, so we can spay it out. Had a presentation from the county on February 1st regarding the upgrades plan for 257. The committee had many questions and concerns. As a follow-up, the county provided documentation for the reasoning behind some of the proposed upgrades. We discussed further at our meeting on this date, and based on the committee's concerns, we're asking the council to formally look into or make a statement about the narrowing of the lanes on, which is the proposed narrowing of the lanes in this freight corridor. I'm just ad-libbing here, right?
Oh, that sounds good.
Mary, and then I think we should, I mean, yeah, then just state maybe some of our other
And yeah.
points of concern are, I mean, the narrowing of lanes, they didn't consult like freight users, and how that would affect, I'm sure there's some information out there of how that would
Super
affect the
easy.
truckers and what their opinion is of all that. And that the study was only done, yeah, for some and not all users, or very
Neighbors,
small group.
neighbors,
of-
not
yeah.
users.
And then whatever else. I think,
We want to put,
do we,
do we want to put anything about about Gresham not?
I don't know,
Because-
I don't know
because it-
enough.
Again, it's just,
I don't know enough about that,
Okay.
and I don't want to.
And Gresham does Gresham. I mean, I would encourage you, Woodrow, to go to see or sit in on a city council meeting and ask them questions, but normally we tend to do Troutdale and they do Gresham.
This is Sherry. I'm not sure, but maybe, I know we talked about it last time, and there might be some reason to include concerns over emergency vehicles and how they would travel in that area with the narrow lane and freight being in, you know.
well, even their comment
I
captured in
don't
the
want to
notes.
get too heavy into this. It needs to just be brief, concise. We'll make the statement, and then if we have any other things, we can, you can come or be on Zoom and say your other concerns. We only have 5 minutes. And our main concern really is the narrowing of the lanes. I mean, we could pick this thing apart all the time.
Well, and so,
This relates to the narrowing of the lanes, Victoria. An emergency vehicle traveling would have to get into the narrow lane to go by freight, and that would be an issue. with the
Yeah,
narrow
it'd be an
lane.
issue, but it's that way all around Portland now.
Well, so again, if we're talking about the narrowing lanes, it's what they're considering. And if we're addressing this as a group and we only go in with one concern, but we come separately, it sounds like we're not, you know, if we're coming with a consensus with what we think. Now,
But I mean, some of that's just sort of known. I mean, we don't have to tell people that the emergency vehicles might have trouble if you narrow the lane. Some of that's known. I mean, the main thing is the narrowing of the lanes and the safety hazard because of that. I mean, I don't want to get way deep into everything. I mean, we just need our main concerns. Mary?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, that you don't want it to go on and on and on, but I think that we can make it very short and concise by listing things. It's just like little bullet points. It doesn't have to go on and on and on. And I think we should go in with, and just state it's, we might even have other concerns that we're not addressing, but these are the main ones. And list the 4 or 5 concerns and be done. I mean, it's not gonna make it that long. It's just gonna substantiate our dislike or our opinion of what we're concerned about.
Yeah,
I'm
but it
looking at-
seems like everybody has a little bit of a different concern except the narrowing of the lanes.
Yeah, but talking about one, there's many combined, this is Carol, there's many issues regarding, it's just not narrowing the lanes, it's the freight vehicles, it's the sidewalks.
Well, I
There's a
mean,
lot to it.
we can
But a
say-
letter can, hold on, point of order, a letter can state several different things. A letter can be 5 paragraphs long, it's however you want, however long you want it. And I think that if the core of our group wants to list 4 or 5 different things, we need to do that.
Okay, then we need to agree on what we're gonna list. I thought Shelby had listed them pretty well. Can you read it again?
Okay, Public Safety Equity Advisory Committee had a presentation from the county on February 1st regarding the upgrades planned for 257. The committee had many questions and concerns. As a follow-up, the county provided documentation for the reasoning behind some of the proposed upgrades. We discussed further at our meeting on March 7th. Based on the committee's concern, we are asking the council to take action on the subject. These are our concerns. And then that's where I just had, at first it just said the one, but then I did have others, but since you guys all have others, I want to list them too. So
Okay,
these are the
so,
concerns, narrowing of the lanes, and that's where I
Okay,
stopped
so-
and figure out priorities, what we want to list.
impede safety vehicles.
All right, so in the notes about safety vehicles, my question to Stephen, will enhanced crossings yield to emergency vehicles? No. So that,
What?
will the enhanced crossings yield to emergency vehicles?
No, you're right.
That's an issue. So that right there, that's a, emergency vehicles, enhanced crossings will not yield to emergency vehicles. That's an issue. Boom.
That's a dot point.
Yeah, that's a negative. And then question, will narrowing the road affect response times for emergency vehicles? And he says, he does not believe it will. So that was a wishy-washy response to me. He does not believe the narrowing of lanes will negatively affect response times.
Can you tell me what page you're on, please?
This one here.
And this is
Zero
Sherry.
four.
And the documentation that was sent actually refutes.
Yeah, and she wrote that.
Well,
Oh, I didn't say, I didn't.
Or you didn't say
No, I
refute.
summarized it. I was trying to make it short.
I just think you need
Right,
to make sure that you point them, the documentation actually disagrees
Okay,
with narrowing in a freight area.
So impede safety vehicles, what else?
So multiple members expressed significant concern over emergency vehicles and freight traffic. And Stephen says, we are maintaining the freight route. We aren't touching the freight lane. But aren't the cars being placed closer? He goes, we're increasing awareness by being closer to the freight lane, and that reduces speeds. So is he saying that the freight lane is not being narrowed?
That's right, one lane.
So,
The outer of the
Yeah.
lane would remain the same.
okay,
The bike lane will have an extra stripe of what they say is 6 inches or
Mhm.
something like that. I'm sure that it has to be more than technically 6 inches because the stripe itself is so wide. So it will narrow the middle of the two lanes, or the one to the left-ish of it,
Mhm.
will narrow that, which means when the gust of wind hits, you know, it can swing one way or the other depending on, sorry, that's my opinion.
What about the bike lanes?
I don't know if there's enough bike traffic on that road to warrant all the additional work they're doing to it.
Is there a need for
Yeah,
a bike
So
lane?
that would be my question, in that his response was they've taken no data to know how many people actually use that as a thoroughfare.
Yeah, just those,
That's why I say, if you just took the bike lane that exists and increased the sidewalk size, a bike and a person walking could be on it. Right now, the sidewalk is so unusable because it's not maintained by the,
right, that's, I think that was a key point too, that, you know, the regular maintenance
it's never done.
would make it so much more usable and functional without the traffic narrowing.
okay, we're running out of time, guys. Okay, any bullet points, go. Mary, what's your bullet points?
I think the narrowing of lanes and back
Mhm.
it up by, you know, how it affects the emergency vehicles.
Okay,
Shelby, could you read what you've got there?
I'm trying to go after, these are our concerns, and then I've just like bagged some of the other stuff. I started over on this page. The documentation contradicts the narrowing of lanes in a freight corridor, and that's the only one I've transferred over. Then we had the document, no, that's the same thing. Okay, and then the emergency vehicles, I've just said, I haven't figured out how to add that over here. I was just said, okay, I'm running out of room, I can't figure out how to write this, so help me out now, you guys.
that's why I said
I'm madly writing.
impede safety vehicles. Okay, so narrowing the lanes, documentation, impede, bullet point.
Bit of a draw.
So
Hmm?
another point
Go ahead.
was the proposed crosswalk locations didn't match the survey responses. So they really, what little responses they received, they didn't follow.
This is Shelby, and I know they did argue in that, though, saying that there was the problem with people coming out and stuff like that. That's what I remember. You're right, it totally didn't. It's like the one that was the least chosen was the one we for sure got, 28. It's just like, and that's so close to Stark, it seemed ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
But I got it because I believe after he explained some of it, but I believe Sherry and I were talking about it, is afterwards, she says, well, I get it. You know, you come out, look, think about it on this street. If you were to put it on, I think 24th, she said, look, you can't do it there because there's an apartment complex over there. Well, how are they gonna get out? There's gonna be no access to a refuge. So it has to be far enough away from where you already have cross traffic. So that's why it doesn't work. I just wondered, they didn't consider, I think, but I haven't gone and driven to see if I could think if it made sense. But they didn't consider, I think, 25th. I think and I just thought it would be further away. They considered, I think, 24th, 26th, 28th, 13th, and 17th way down there. So between the 24th, I saw how that didn't work. The 26th is a cross street. That doesn't work. So they got the 28th. I think there's not across from it. And I think they never talked about 25th. But because there's only one traffic on one side, so maybe it doesn't even make sense. But I was trying to get it further away from Stark. But I don't know, I'm not a traffic engineer, so obviously I don't know what they figured out. Maybe they only looked at the intersections that they had in the survey where people said. So I don't know. I wish it could be placed better, but I think I understood their argument about that.
Another point I have is, Stephen says, a big concern of the county was finding ways to reduce speed. And I think that our traffic surveys that we received from the captain doesn't show that there's a huge speed problem there. So the data doesn't support the county's concern. I mean, there's other issues going on in that stretch, right? Maintenance, lighting, right? But speed doesn't seem to be.
This is Sherry, that's why I keep going back to the time of the survey was still during that coming out of the pandemic, which is when lots of people were staying home and the people that were out there driving were driving crazy. Like I said, I was out there driving along. Here comes somebody flying up, probably 60, 70 miles an hour, floats over into the emergency lane, goes right on by and keeps on going. That's, narrow lane or not, that's not gonna stop somebody.
Yeah, that shall be, you mean that left turn refuge, right? That's-
Yes.
Yes, yeah, that's where they were.
Some of the time they're actually in the oncoming lanes when they fly over, but that was back then. I haven't seen that now for a while.
Wild. Wild. I mean, we can go back and look at the data. Here's what the average speeds are at these intersections based upon, the speed cameras. It's not an issue. 80% travel within the speed limit. That's a good thing. High fives all around. Done. Right?
Okay, you guys, Shelby Steffensen here again. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the bullet points that were the things that are of concern. And I think I was trying to write more of the paragraph when you guys were talking about bullet points, because I've got basically many sentences that are saying the same thing. So I'm just going back to our concerns are that the documentation contradicts the narrowing of lanes in a freight corridor. It impedes safety vehicles. What were other points? I mean, I definitely feel the crosswalk stuff, but I don't know if everybody else feels the one by the school is, and I don't know if that makes sense.
I think I go back to the crosswalks don't take in a holistic plan from Halsey to Stark, right? If you look at it from Halsey to Stark, you would put the crosswalks in a different spot. If you take it from Cherry Park to Stark, you probably put them in a different spot. So I just,
Can I pause here? I just want to say to Paul, any public comment on this?
Thank you, Victoria. I was just going to say, I couldn't tell who was speaking exactly, but one of the female speakers did address a major complaint that I had about the 17th Way crosswalk between Hensley and Cherry Park 16th. That one doesn't make sense to me at all either.
it's too close to the line, isn't it? Yeah, agree.
Thank you, Paul. Sorry, Pat.
I'm going to add, Shelby Steffensen, I'm going to add specifically when we have the point, the crosswalks don't take into account a holistic approach. Specifically this one at 17th. I think that's the right one that they're doing, at least 17th.
So can you read down what you've gotten down? This Carol, could you write down what you've gotten so far?
From the top or just from the
I would
concern?
start from the top so I know what you're wanting.
And like I said, I know this is hard trying to do this big a thing on the fly, but okay. The Public Safety Equity Advisory Committee had a presentation from the county on February 1st regarding the upgrades plan for 257. The committee had many questions and concerns. As a follow-up, the county provided documentation for the reasoning behind some of the proposed upgrades. We discussed further at our meeting on March 7th. Based on the committee's concerns, we are asking the council to take action on the subject. These are our concerns. The documentation contradicts the narrowing of lanes in a freight corridor. Narrowing lanes impedes safety vehicles. The crosswalks don't take into account a holistic approach, specifically our concerns on for 17th. And that's it.
What about no data collected on actual bike usage?
Or speeding.
Yeah,
This
they
girl-
have, they have that little one from the online survey.
Not usage.
It
That's
just
what
says
people want.
9%.
Yeah.
That's all it says is 9%.
I guess what I mean is when you collect data, you'd actually sit and say, oh, here goes a bicyclist, oh, here's a bicyclist going
Oh.
by.
Traffic
Not-
study on bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they only have it from the survey and it said 9% bike.
This
It was
anecdotal,
227 people.
people exaggerate. their
And-
uses. They want to be.
I don't know where they all live. Yeah,
I just want to point you to, there is
but you're right, there's no
this
data. there.
page provided by them, phase 1 focus groups discussion, what we heard, nearly all participants drive exclusively.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that one from online, they're saying they bike, but they could have just
So-
said they bike, but that doesn't mean they bike
So-
257.
So they ignore the participants in the walking study, they're ignoring the responses, right?
Well, they didn't ignore anything we said in the walking, they just didn't tell us they were narrowing the lane. I mean, when we went on that, all the things they were doing for the lighting and the sidewalks, and that's what I was all excited about, and then all of a sudden, all the,
Traffic calming.
Desire for tech solutions to speeding is one of the focus group discussions. So in place of police enforcement, let's have red light cameras and radar feedback signs. Nothing about narrowing up the lane.
Mary, how,
oh, Mary, sorry.
due to, I know we're on time constraint, and we can always just put, these are just some of our concerns. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
it's
Some of
not
the
like it's
concerns
gonna
are
be
fine.
all of our concerns,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Some
But
of our
some.
concerns.
And that way
I'll
it just
change
kind of, we can just kind of, because we gotta come to a stopping point.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Twyla, are you on board with all these?
I support you guys' letter.
Okay.
I just want to confirm, we got 4 bullet points. Documentation contradicts and narrowing the lanes, the freight corridor, narrowing of lanes impedes emergency vehicles, the crosswalks don't take a holistic approach, no data collected on actual bike usage / traffic. Summary?
Yes,
I like it.
I believe so.
Sound good?
Cool.
Yeah. Who's coming on Tuesday night?
I'll be there. This Carol,
Why
I'll be there.
don't we have them
And
Tuesday
who would
night?
like to present the letter? Shelby, would you like to?
Sure. But it should it be officially from you, or I'll do it? Okay,
I'll
okay,
be
sure.
there to support you.
Okay, sure. I'll
Carol
do it.
just did a presentation. on her Tuesday.
I'll be there.
Okay.
If you
I'm gonna
don't
try
want-
and come.
Yes,
I've got
I'll be there.
Something that might be conflicting, so
What are you gonna do here?
I'm gonna try coming.
I'll either be here or online with it.
if you're here at least.
Yeah, I know.
Is there value speaking independently from this committee? Saying, hi, I'm Woodrow as a concerned citizen,
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
then maybe we can pull upon our CAC background and bring some other interested people to come talk as well.
I mean, that's how I got involved. It wasn't the CAC. I think they're doing that. We're gonna have to wait a while through the meeting.
There's a whole lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on that night. And then if we're there, we can hear all the ambulance too, so that'll be interesting, so.
So this is Carol. I noticed that, I know that we are over time, and so we have like number 8 that talks about the update on the safety survey. Can we postpone that until the April meeting?
Do you want to table it? I lift them over, I love
Did I
it.
give you a copy?
I like it.
It's very good.
Maybe, this is Mary, Al, maybe if you guys would look it over, this next
Right, that's what I
floor and
said,
critique
yeah.
it, add to it, take away, whatever, and then come back, and then we can discuss it. Oh,
So,
Shelby has a question.
Shelby Stephenson. I think that we had a few other things. This was just our first stab, and we did a little testing with people to get a little feedback, but we also had some other things that we were thinking potentially about it. So I don't want you guys to think that this is
Final.
this is the
Not
final,
final.
because we had
This is
some other
just-
ideas and things after we did it, we got feedback. And so we were planning to add those when we discussed it. So yes, it would be wonderful if everyone could read it and look at it and test it yourself, time it, or mark it up, but come prepared for us to get closer to finishing it, I think, next time, right?
Okay.
Mary has her hand up.
So we'll table that to next month.
Don't we need to vote on that?
Mary has some.
I'm sorry, Mary Al, I just wanted to say about the survey again, like Shelby said, it's just a rough, so critique it and everything and come back next month. But also, we did, just so you guys know, we took each one of us and had people do it and time it and critique it. You know, what could be better. So we have that information as well. So anyway, if
that's
you guys
great.
want to make copies of it and do it that way, if you know, I mean, whatever, and then we can discuss it next. Thank you.
Okay. Carol, make a motion to table it. A formal one.
Okay, this is Carol Allen. I'll make a motion that we table our conversation regarding the safety survey to April 4th meeting.
Second.
Woodrow seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, update on next month's agenda. So I did approach Gresham again, and they were very happy to have the chief come, and I asked that he bring the report that he just presented to city council. And evidently he's talked to Ray in the meantime, and they have some other things up. So remember, we can ask him about CERT and the Scout Explorer and whatever else we can think of. So he'll be here. And then we'll do our safety survey. And we need to start on red light cameras again, because we were asked to look into that. So we'll discuss that more. We don't have to decide anything next week, but
I believe that when we had talked about that before, we could bring it up, but the fact that they are going to still be doing work on 257, setting up a red light camera, I believe we determined was postponed, possibly until
no,
after.
Ray just talked about it tonight.
He did that as a citizen.
Yeah,
That's what he just came as for comment. But that's what he said, that when we talk about it again, but that's what I believe from the previous meetings we talked about. That
we
would-
talked about that we didn't have enough information.
We agreed to
So-
postpone it until we understood more of what was going on 257.
And that's why I got the people to come in and talk. And then Ray said his opinion tonight. I'm not saying we have to vote on a red light. I just think we need, that was given to us months ago, and I think we need to discuss it.
My understanding that Multnomah County manages most of the roads, and they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And
Okay,
if we want to do one thing or not want to do one thing, it really, there needs to be a greater strategy involved, aside from just our traffic
Ray
studies.
just said tonight that, I forget which side. He said, we can put it on our side. He said, we can also try and connect with Gresham Police and have one up. I'm not saying I want one. I'm just saying we need to discuss this.
Do we
It's been,
wanna move it out past April, like maybe May? Because we need to find out which way the city council is gonna fall on the 257 improvements.
that
Right.
still has nothing to do with the red lights and everything.
And I think Multnomah County might do their own thing.
I'll talk to Ray.
Okay,
I'm putting it on the agenda. We have postponed it for months.
But we talked about we agreed, I'm sorry, Twyla, you were next.
Mine was just a bad joke.
No, this is Carol. We agreed as a committee to discuss it later in the spring. That is what we agreed on. We did not.
April, spring. March, I mean, we're almost in the spring. I don't know what the reluctance is to discuss it. I mean, I got the people in from 257 to give you it. I said I'd get camera people in if you wanted them to talk. We were given a task, and I just think we should discuss it. And I mean, if we unanimously say, I don't want it, that's fine. Or the other way around. But I think it needs to be on our discussion. Okay?
and if we get additional information from the council meeting, again, I'm Woodrow. If we get additional information from the council meeting, or any other additional information, we can make an adjustment to our schedule as well.
Okay, so next is confirming next month's meeting, April 4th at 6:30. Okay, and I need to remind Mary, Shirley, Ray's not here, but your terms are expiring, and you should have got an application in the mail already. All right. And committee member comments, start, Twyla? Tell us your bad joke.
I was just, this is Twyla. I was gonna say that it might slow down enough from that tiny lane that nobody will have time to run the red light, so. There you go.
Yeah.
She made you send, but she
Including
has a
the
sense of humor.
ambulances. They'll stop at every stop there is.
Thank you, guys, good meeting.
Mary.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and it was a good meeting, and hope we Have a good month.
Or we might have to have other kinds of cameras because there'll be so many accidents on the lanes.
What do you think?
Yeah, thanks for a good meeting and, yeah, we'll see when we get done.
Thank you all for your patience, because I know this is really hard to write a letter on the fly, but I really appreciate that we get a chance to talk to council about this, because I think there's just huge concerns about this. So thank you for doing that. Good meeting. Thank you, Sandy, for faithfully joining us.
And Paul.
And Paul for faithfully joining us, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Daniel, for taking the notes on all this. And you guys have a good month.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for the Public Safety Survey Committee. That was I'm blown away at this.
I
So,
love
no,
it.
this is really cool. And dude, it's got maps.
I know, it's great.
Dude, it's like professional grade.
I know.
Well done.
Mary, did you do? I love it.
Just the map. It wasn't very easy.
It makes the difference, so well done.
Carol.
I thought we had a good meeting tonight. Again, that survey looks awesome. So, thank you. Also, spring break's the end of the month, so yay.
So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, did you have any comments that you wanted to say?
Oh, I said enough.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second. Carol will second. Twyla.
We need to adjourn.
All those in
All in
favor?
favor.
Aye.
If you're not in favor, you can
All
say.
right.
I know, it's
Turn
late.
the camera.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. That was
Outstanding.
Initially, it was talked about pushing it off what we thought would be accurate project, and the project's already 6 months.
Twyla, don't you want to come Tuesday night too? We can
Oh my
make it
gosh.
next week.
She's had so many meetings here. She's
I had 3